Hi everyone, it's Tammy with Shabby Fabrics. I am so excited to bring you this amazing project today. This is the Border Stripe Apron. I love these. Joyce Minnis has come up with another fun project, and in true Joyce fashion, she has just done it to the nines. We just love these aprons. You can take any border stripe fabric and make these beautiful aprons, whether you're looking for fall, whether you're looking for floral or fruit. The choice is yours. When you make this apron, you're going to have a little bit of stripe left over, and Joyce will give you directions on how to make a hanging towel using the leftover stripe, and that is in the pattern. So I'm going to walk you through how to make the limoncello apron today. You can do these aprons two different ways. The first way is with a contrasting fabric as a pocket, like on this one, or you can actually fussy your stripe here and match it. And this is the one that we're going to make today. I'm going to show you some little tips I have on the easiest way I have found to make these cute pockets. All right, so I'm going to clear the table and get started. Here we go. All right, we're back. Let's start with just a piece of fabric, right? Here is a large piece of my border stripe right here. All right. How in the heck am I going to start fussy cutting this? Well, here's the way I did it. The first thing I'm going to do when I have a border stripe, and this can be any stripe, okay, is you're going to identify what you want down the very center. All right, so on the apron here, we have the lemons running straight down the center. So I'm going to identify that first. Now I can't use, this is the center because obviously I don't have enough here. I don't have enough here, so it's got to be this print right here. This one right here is the one I'm going to have to do. I need to measure 29 inches total across. So it's 29 inches wide and 29 inches long. So I have like a giant square, all right? So we're going to get our stripe fussy cut into the middle of that, okay? How do we do that? Well, there it is. I have a friction pen, and I have a 2.5 by 24.5 inch ruler. I love this ruler. This is pretty much the only tool that I use, the only ruler that I use when I made these. Okay? All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center of my lemons here. So when I measure this, this is exactly 4.5 inches to the edge of this blue mark to the edge of this one. Now I know what's half of 4.5, 2.25. Here's 2.5, back it off one. Let me move to a lemon so my mark is going to show. Okay, 2.5, 2.25, right here. I'm going to put a mark there. Okay, that is dead center of my lemons. All right, so now I need 29 inches, so I'm going to measure over 14.5 and over 14.5 on the other side. Let's see where that lands us. This is why I love this big ruler. So I set it on here, starting with my 1/2 inch mark. 14.5 is right here. Make another mark. That's where I'm going to fussy cut this stripe. Let's go 14.5 inches the other direction. Move this over. Now I'm going to put 14.5 on the mark. There it is right there. Perfect. That looks great. Okay, so I'm cutting into the yellow stripe on either side. This is the center. All right. Okay, let's do it. So I'm going to take my apron, or my fabric, I'm sorry, it's not an apron yet, but it will be soon. All right, I'm going to cut into this stripe about right here. Here we go. I'm going to take off this edge all the way up. And I'm just cutting a little bit at a time. I'm making sure my cuts are straight with the fabric. Okay? So I'm watching the stripe. There's my mark. I'm going to just perfectly hit that. Okay, last cut. Whoop, missed a little piece right there. There we go. All right, now this is what you're gonna set aside to make your towels out of. All right, okay. Turn it over. And I'm just gonna do exactly the same thing all the way down. All right, another strip. There we go. All right. Here we are. I need 29 inches total. I believe my piece is around 42. Let's do a quick measure on it. I'm going to fold this in half and just measure, just to double check. Yes, mine is 43 inches. So I need 29 inches, right? So what I'm going to do is I want to start my lemons about right here. So I'm just going to take a couple of inches off the top here. I want to start that about right here. So that I'm going to have this right here where it starts, right here in the very front, right underneath that top band. And you can see that right here. All right, so let's do that. So to cut this now, I'm going to fold this in half, wrong sides together. Get this all nice and straight, like this. Perfect. I'm going to set this on a line to make sure that I'm cutting this straight. I'm going to take my ruler. All right, let's verify where I'm at. Okay. So I just want to take off about 1.5 inches or so. Not more than that. I'm going to make a straight cut right across here. All right, there's the top of my apron. All right, now I need to measure 29 inches the other way. All right, so I'm going to use my cutting mat here. I'm going to have to do this in a couple of jumps because I know I don't have 29 inches straight up. 10, 20. Oh, I do actually. 29 inches is to right here. Oh, excellent. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to cut this off at 29. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, you're going to waste all that fabric. No, I'm going to use it. All right. This is now what we're going to cut our pockets out of. Okay? All right, so I'm making sure everybody is straight. We're on a line. Everything is straight. And now we're going to draw the line to the measurement where you want your top of your pockets. And that measurement is going to vary because it depends on how tall you are. All right, so if you're in the pattern and you're looking at that, you need to see how, you need to pay attention to Joyce's measurement. She's very, very good about telling you what measurement you're going to use if you're petite and what measurement you're going to use if you're tall. All right, I am tall, so I am using the tall measurement. All right, so this is a pocket placement line is what this is. All right, there we go. Let's just double check that our lines are the same. They should be. Yep, right under the lemon, right there. I think that's close enough. All right, perfect. Okay, now we're going to take our piece of fabric that we set aside that is our pocket fabric. Okay, I have a long piece of pocket fabric and I can see a repeat. I'm looking at the repeat right here. These two little lemons right here. I can see the bottoms of them. Here's these two lemons. So I'm going to move this fabric up. Oh, look at that. That's really close. I can see exactly where the repeat is on this. Straighten this out. I want everybody straight so that when I put this piece of fabric on top, I can't see the pocket anymore, right? You cannot see the pocket fabric. If you were to stand back and look at this, you can't see where the pocket fabric is because the repeat, it's right there. Okay, so you know, a little secret that I found, I have a lot of fabric here. I cut this fabric in half. Take this, and I actually cut my pocket fabric in half. I just want to work with half of this at a time. All right. This one is going over here. This one is on this side. All right. There we go. Just get that right where I want it. That looks really close. That is close enough to my eye that I think if I put a pocket right here, make this pocket out of this, you're not going to be able to see it on the apron. All right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to redraw my line. I'm going to transfer this line to this fabric. So I'm going to take a pin and I'm just going to mark where this line is so I know where it is. I know it's at the bottom of the lemon. You can go and just double check. It's right at the bottom of that lemon. We're going to make sure our ruler is straight, and I'm just lining up the straight on the stripe just to make sure I'm not going to, I don't want to draw a crooked line. I want to draw a straight line. Here we go. All right. Double check. That looks good. All right. Let's do this side now. So let's do it again. So I'm going to put a pin here just so I have a visual on where that line actually is. I'm moving this up until the repeat hits exactly. See, it hits the leaf, it hits the lemon. I like that. This is all nice and straight. Let's come down a little. There we go. All right. Just to verify, just at the bottom of the lemon. Make sure our ruler's straight, our fabric is straight. Everything looks straight to me. I'm going to draw the line. Okay. Perfect. All right. Let's set our pockets here. We're going to work with our pockets next. All right. So I'm going to set this aside, and now I'm going to show you how to cut pockets. All right? All right, so now let's trim our pockets down and actually make a pocket. So we're going to make two. So the first thing I'm going to do, this line that I drew right here, I'm going to cut on this line. This is my top of where I want that to be. This is the top. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to measure. These pockets are 9 inches long and 10 inches wide. All right, so I'm going to cut my pocket to that. I'm going to start on a number that's easy to read here. So I'm 9 inches long. And 10 inches. Okay, so now you're like, which side do I cut 10 inches from? Well, you have to remember this pocket is on this side, right? Let's look back at our fabric. If you get confused, just look back at your fabric. Yes, I'm going to confirm this pocket goes on this side. So I measure from the outside in 10 inches. All right. So I'm going to put this on here, and I'm going to go this way. 10 inches should be in the blue. Yep. Correct. All right. This is my pocket. Okay? Perfect. I like that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and quickly cut this one. And I'm going to show you how to trim the tops because Joyce put this really cool slant on the top of this that I really like. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, this pocket goes on the other side. So you can label these pockets if you like. I would advise doing that if you're going to get confused because it is a little bit confusing. I understand that. Okay, so this pocket has a unique slant on it where it's higher in the center and lower on the outside. That's so for ease of putting your hands in and out. I thought that was very clever rather than the patch pockets like my grandma's apron used to have. Remember how they used to turn the pocket sideways so that your hand could go into it? My grandmother had, I think my mother had an apron like that. It was very clever and I always wondered, why are her pockets sideways? Well, it's for ease of putting your hand in and out. So instead of doing that, Joyce has got a way of making a slant on here. So the center is the higher, the center is the blue part. All right. I already know what's going to happen. I'm going to cut this backwards. I don't want to do that. All right, so to cut that, we're going to put the tip of our ruler here, and this edge, you need to be 2 inches down. So I'm going to move this 2 inches, move this back up to 0, this down to 2, just like that. That is how I'm going to cut this. Now, if you're unsure about that cut, by all means, grab a friction pen and verify that, yep, that's what I want. This is where it goes. That's how I'm going to cut that. All right, this is confusing. I understand that. And I did verify my cuts with a friction pen before I did this the first time. I did not want to mess that up. Not after all the work to fussy cut it out of here. You don't want to mess up your pocket now. All right? All right, so there's the first one. Now the second one, same thing, except in reverse, right? This is the center, so it's the high point. The outside edge is the low point, right? So the blue's my high point. That's where the tip of my ruler is. The 2-inch mark is now dropped, just like that. See that? 2 inches down, right to this point. I'm confident that's correct. All right, there we go. There are my pockets, just like that. Okay? Now the pocket lining is made out of a contrast color. And the reason for that is I'm going to show you how to put a little welt on the top of it. This is very clever. This took me a while to figure out an easy way to do it, but I'm going to share that with you now. So I have 2 pieces of fabric. I'm going to put them wrong sides together or right sides together. It does not matter, but they do have to be opposite. All right. I'm going to press this one out just a little bit. All right, now the pockets are intentionally cut larger than these, or I'm sorry, the pocket linings are cut larger than the pockets, all right? And you can see that when you put this on here, they're like, wow, that's huge. Well, you see what's missing? The cut. All right, so let's make the cut. So I have 2 pocket linings, wrong sides together. So I'm cutting one and one opposite for the other side. All right, I'm going to start at 0 on this side and drop my ruler 2 inches down on this side. Readjust, readjust. Sometimes you have to readjust several times before you get that just right where you want that. And cut. Perfect. All right, now I have a pocket lining for this one, and I have a pocket lining for this one. Beautiful. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a strip of Shape Flex. Joyce gives you directions on how to cut your shape flex in there. You just cut your strips and just have them ready because you'll need them throughout the process here. But I'm going to reinforce the top of this pocket with some shape flex. So I have a strip. I'm just going to lay it on here and fuse it down. I know my strip is a little bit longer. I'm not going to worry about that, and I just trim these off. You trim them with scissors, rotary cutter, whatever's usually in my hand. Trim that. Okay. So you're going to put your pockets right sides together, like this. All right. Now we're going to pin. Now let's do this other one. Let's go ahead and finish through what I started. Let's do the other one too. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, so now I have a pocket and a pocket lining, right sides together. Okay, it looks really strange, doesn't it? I will admit, this looks really weird. In quilting, we're used to pieces lining up exactly on top of each other. That is not the case here, all right? So don't think you've done something wrong. This is correct. All right, so I'm gonna take this to the sewing machine and I'm gonna sew 1/4 of an inch here to here, okay? And I have dark blue thread on my sewing machine because I have dark blue that I'm sewing with. And so I just put dark blue in the top and the bobbin. You could use whatever color you want to match what your fabric is, okay? It's not kind of like quilting where you're just gonna use white thread wherever. Here you're gonna wanna match your thread to your fabric, okay? All right, so I just came on a little bit here. I just wanna sew 1/4 of an inch straight across this. All right, so now let's go to the ironing mat. So the first thing I'm going to do is set my seam. Of course, that's a habit, right, from quilting. I'm going to fold this up and just kind of finger press this edge a little bit, like this. All right. All right, I'm going to turn it back over. Now I want to finish sewing this pocket. So I'm going to fold this like this. What I want to do is I want to leave enough fabric to make that little welt on the top that you see, right? All right, so to do that, I have this folded over, right? Have it like this, and just folded this over. You can see the fold. I'm going to shift my pocket up until the fold lines up with my seam allowance. You see that? See how this is folded? There's my seam allowance, and this pocket is now folded up to the seam allowance. You can see on this edge how I've taken that little pleat kind of in there, right? So now I'm going to take a pin, and I'm going to pin that little pleat right there. I want that to stay there. I want that to stay there on this side too. I'm just going to adjust my fabric, move the pocket up and down until this fold is exactly at the top, just like that. Okay? And pin it. Perfect. All right, now the short side of this pocket, remember, that's the outside, right? This is going to be caught in the seam allowance when you sew this apron together. You are not going to sew this side. We're going to leave that side open so that when we have a way to turn this pocket through, because we're going to turn it right side out, okay? This side, do not sew that side. Where you're going to sew is you're going to start sewing right here at this bottom corner all the way to this corner, like that, and then all the way up to here. This is a 1/4 inch seam allowance, no problem. Just like that, okay? down, and up. All right, and I did make one ahead of time. I have sewn down and across. All right, so let's take our pins out and let's trim this pocket up now. So now I'm going to go back to my rotary cutter. I'm going to lay this on here straight and go. Okay, so stopping here for a moment to mention, this corner you can cut. Do not cut this corner. You might be tempted to. You're like, oh, I'm just going to trim that off. The problem is there's a fold here in this fabric. And if you clip this corner, you're going to put a hole in the top of that pocket. Ask me how I know that. I know this because I did this, all right? My instinct was to cut that other corner. Don't do it. Fight the temptation right now. Don't do it. All right, let's turn this right side out. I'm going to use a clover point-to-point turner, and I'm going to push my corners out. Now I want you to see how these corners come out. Here's the top. Oh, look how cute that is. Look how cute this is. This is my right pocket. Look how cute that is. See that? This turns just fine whether you have cut that corner or not. All right? Beautiful. All we need to do now is give it a press. And we are in business. We are good to go. Get my point in there better. There we go. All right, so you can see how that fold now just magically lays in there, just like that. And now I have this perfect little 1/4 inch welt pocket right at the top. I love that. That's very clever of Joyce to do that little finishing touch like that. You know, it's the little touches like that. They're so simple to do when you see how they're done. But looking at that, I'm thinking, I don't know how the heck she did that. That looks really hard. Nah. I'll show you how I do it. It's easy. You can do this. You'll be making aprons for everyone in your family in no time. All right. There we go. And there's our pocket. All right, now we're ready to attach them to our apron. All right, so this is the next step of this apron. All right, you're going to place your pockets lining up your pattern so that these look seamlessly on here. Pin well, all right? I pinned a lot of pins here to make sure that these pockets stayed exactly where I wanted them. You can see these hit these seams exactly where I wanted them, okay? Pin well. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the top band right here. Now the top band is simply a strip of fabric with some shape flex on the back. All right, and again, Joyce tells you measurements, how to cut this, no problem. All right, that's all in the pattern. All right, so I have sewn this on here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I turned and pressed it towards the band, and then I just ran a real quick top stitch right across there. And I just decided that I like the navy blue thread. I have a little thread there. I decided I like the navy blue thread on this. The navy just kind of blended in, and every now and then you can see it. I'm okay with that. I'm way good with that. That's why I went ahead and used navy blue to sew on my pockets. All right? So I just sewed all the way around, 3 sides, 1, 2, 3. So I now have a complete pocket. All right? Okay, it doesn't look much like an apron, does it? Let's fix that. All right? Okay, the next step, I'm going to fold this in half, wrong sides together. I'm going to match my edges. I'm matching my pockets match. Let's take a look. Yep, those pockets look really good. Everything looks great. Remember, this is not a precision quilt. Let's say one pocket is 1/4 of an inch off from the other one. Don't worry about it. It's okay. No one's ever going to know. You're the only one, right? Your pockets are on either side of you. No one's going to say, hold up, I want to see those pockets. They're not perfect. Nobody's doing that. You're fine, all right? Have fun with this. Enjoy the process, and don't get too hung up on doing everything perfection, okay? That's my advice. All right, so I have this laid out just like this. Okay, now in your pattern, there's a template. So I have taken this template and I've cut it apart, and I have taped the top part straight to the bottom one. And then I have a little side seam thing that you put on here to increase this way. All right? This makes this template a little bit wider, and the height. This is where this goes on. Okay? Now, how far am I cutting this, right? I don't want to cut it here. You can move this all around. Joyce says to take a 2.5 inch ruler. You measure 2.5 inches in from the fold of your apron. I just laid my ruler on there because it's 2.5 inches. Like I said, this is really the only ruler I used when I made this. And I set my template right up next to it, just like this. And there's my side seam. Okay? So now I'm going to pin this on, and then we're going to take our scissors and cut this curve. All right? Here we go. Okay, so once I have this all pinned, and you can see I am using the Cool Pins by Gypsy Quilter. This is a more stout pin than my extra fine patchwork pins. You know me, I love my extra fine patchwork pins, but if I were to try to use these on here, they would just bend. When I'm trying to go through paper and 2 thicknesses of fabric, I know they would bend. There's no way. So to protect those, I did change my pins to these Cool Pins by the Gypsy Quilter. All right, we ready to cut? I think so. I'm ready to cut this. Nothing happens with any of this, right? The only thing I'm cutting is the curve, and that's all I pinned. I don't need to pin the rest of this on. I just need to pin the curve. All right, so I'm going to use my Karen K. Buckley purple scissors. They've got a serrated blade. I love them. They are very, very sharp, and they're very comfortable to hold in my hands. So I'm going to trim this out. You know, I have to hide my sewing scissors in my sewing room. I don't want my husband cutting things like paper, wire, whatever he might need to cut during the day. I tend to hide my scissors from him. I'll bet you guys do too. All right. Once we get this cut, again, this can just go into your scrap pile. All right, let's take this off. Let's see what we got. Awesome. Look at that. Yay! It looks much more like an apron. I love that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is Joyce recommends that we stabilize the bias edge. The bias edge, which one is that? The one we just cut. That's right, it's the curve. All right, so I'm going to get my bias edge on my mat, and I'm going to take a thin strip of Shape Flex that I have cut little 1/4 inch cuts in. That's to make this turn. All right, the bumpy side is down. That is the fusible side. Be very careful with that. You do not want to do this the other way, or your iron's not going to like you very much. All right, so I'm going to start right on the edge like this, and you see how my cut edge is to the inside, right? So as I'm going around this, see how the cuts open up and they let this curve right around the curve. Okay, I think our iron is hot now. Let's do this. I'm just going to follow that right along with my iron. and fuse this right on. This is really a quick and easy way to stabilize a bias edge. Joyce thinks of everything. Here we go. All right, now when I get up to the top here, you have an option right now. You can cut this right here if you don't want this any stiffer, or you can go ahead and just continue all the way up with this. I don't care. I don't think it matters either way. I looked at it. I don't think it matters. You just do whatever you like. There we go. No problem. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is, you notice on my diagram where I have a tie placement in the side seam and another one at the top. I'm going to take a little 2-inch square of shape flex that I cut, and I'm going to set this on here, and I just want to reinforce this because I'm going to be stitching those ties here, and that might be a stress point on the apron, right? So we're going to put a square here. All right, and I'm going to put another square up here. And I'm moving this in 1/4 of an inch so that it just helps that seam allowance a little bit, so you don't have so much bulk in your seam allowance. All right. Very good. Okay, I'm going to do the other side and we'll go to the next step. All right, so I'm back, and now I'm going to take my apron and I'm going to take my cutting guide, and I'm going to put this on here, and I'm going to mark my strap placement. So to do that, I'm just going to pull this down from the edge. I'm just going to make a friction line here. Friction pen is your friend. That'll be covered up in the seam allowance. If you're worried about it leaving a mark on your apron, it's going to be covered up. You're fine. This side, same thing. I'm just going to slide this in a little bit because I need to see where that goes. I'm just going to make little marks. Okay. I'm going to turn this over upside down and do the same thing and just transfer these markings onto the other side. If you have dark fabric like I do, you might want to use chalk. I think I'm good. I can see it. You probably cannot see it on camera though, but I can see those marks. Okay, let's set this aside. So let's do the straps. Let me show you how this is done. I'm going to work with just the small strap, but the next straps both have interfacing in them. So I have my little strip of interfacing here. So this is the smaller strap. So in one end, I'm going to place my hot ruler here, and I'm going to fold it over 1/2 of an inch. I like to use the hot ruler for doing this. Oh, it's so accurate, and it's kind of cool that I get to iron on something and it doesn't melt. I kind of like that. You can even use steam on this thing. You cannot hurt it. There we go. All right. So I have my 1/2 inch folded in. Now I'm going to fold this in half, wrong sides together. Let's move this iron a little closer. There we go. Wrong sides together, and I'm going to put a crease in it. Okay. Open it up. All right, you see this crease line right here. I'm just going to open this up a little bit, and I'm going to take my shape flex. I'm just going to set it right in there, following that crease. Perfect. And I'm going to fuse it in there. We want to give the next strap a little bit more weight to it, a little more body to it. There we go. Cut it off. All right, so now, how do I finish that? That's kind of a weird looking thing, huh? Well, I'm going to fold this edge up to the center like this. I'm going to press as I go here. All right, and then I'm going to press it from the top down, just to the top of that shape flex. Okay. just like that. Okay, now I'm going to fold the two together. You see how that just enclosed this raw edge right here? Just got totally enclosed in fabric. And yes, I do still have a raw edge here. I'm okay with that. That's what I'm sewing into the seam allowance. But I don't want to have the edge folded in because that's going to make that way too bulky in that seam allowance, and I don't want that. I'll use a little bit of steam on this, get it to lay flat like I want it. There we go. All right, so now I just need to top stitch this. So to top stitch it, I'm going to come on here at the raw edge. I have the raw edge here. I come on here and sew up across the top and all the way down this side. All right, and this is what that looks like right here. I did that ahead of time. Up, over, and down. Perfect. This is my small neck strap. I have a large neck strap here. All right, so you'll notice that on this longer neck strap, this one has the fusible in there. You can see that on this end. I have also put 2 rectangle rings. These are 1-inch rectangle rings, and we do have these available on our website. All right, so I just threaded that through there, and I just sewed a little quick rectangle just to hold them in place, because this is going to come into here like this and come back down. And this is your adjustable neck strap. And then it comes back down and feeds through there, just like that. That's how that goes. And it holds that nice and tight for you. Okay? All right. So this is when you put your rectangle rings on. Let me take this apart now. There we go. All right. So I have these two, top and my 2 neck straps. Then I also made my ties. My ties are made exactly the same way, except the ties have no stabilizer in them. They don't need it. These I want to be soft and flexible, so these do not have the shape flex in them. Okay? All right, let's get them onto the apron. All right, so remember we made all of these marks so we could tell. The straps, I want to make sure I'm using the right side. I want the unfinished edge is going on the other unfinished edge, just like this. I'm just going to put a pin in that to hang on to it, just like that. I'm going to tuck this strap into the pocket. Okay, let's do the next one. Other side, raw edge, right to here. Let's throw a pin in that and tuck that strap right in the pocket. You know, that's going to help it stay put so that when we go to sew the lining on here and you're sewing all the way around, now I know where those straps are. They're tucked away safely. They're not going to come dangling out and try to escape. I can't tell you how many times I've sewn a project and turned it and gone, oh, my straps are caught. I don't like that. All right, so here is my smaller piece. That goes on this side. Here's my mark right here. I'm going to pin this one. And then this one. I'm going to put this so that this is facing down. So that when this comes around, when this pops out, it comes around like this. This is how I want it to look, right? You want the finished edge on top. So actually, this rectangle, you want to see that. It goes on face up right now. All right, so let's put this on here like this. All right, I'm going to go to the sewing machine, and I'm going to tack these with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance because I don't want these stitches to show, because I'm going to put this all together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I want these stitches well away from that. So I'm going to sew these, tack them all. I'm going to go over and back and do all 4 of them, and I'll be right back. right, let's take a look. Let's get our pins out. Oop, this one escaped his pocket. Let's get him back in there. I don't want that going anywhere. There we go. This one is on correctly with the rectangle facing up. So when it's turned, it will be face down to hook with that one. This one. Perfect. I love it. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the lining. I'm going to get it all spread out, and I'm going to put the apron on top of it, and then I'm going to start pinning all around the apron. All right, I'm going to show you how we do this. All right, so we are back. Here's my apron. I want you to note my lining is wrong side up. This is the right side. The wrong side of my lining is facing up towards me. All right? Okay. So now I'm going to take the top of my apron and go right to the top. I'm going to start with my pins. Pull this toward myself. All right, and I'm just going to start pinning this apron on here. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to pin this all the way around, and then I'm going to take a rotary cutter and I'm going to cut the sides because they're straight. I'm going to cut these with the scissors. All right, and when I get done with that, we'll put the apron together and we'll have the finishing step and we'll be done. All right, I have my apron completely pinned again to the wrong side of the lining. All right, so now I'm going to take my long ruler, my rotary cutter, I'm going to cut my straight edges, and then I'm going to hand cut my curves with my scissors. All right, so let's do that. All right, so I have my apron lining is now perfectly cut to my apron. All right, so let's take our pins out. And we have a little bit of work to do on the apron lining before we proceed with attaching this to your apron. Remember how we use the stabilizer on the bias curve? Yep, we're going to do that again on the lining because I want to put those two edges together and I don't want them to stretch. So we are definitely going to use our fusible again on that. Set that aside and grab my iron and my mat. All right, now on this, I'm going to do the whole thing. So I have more of my little strips I've done. Remember, you have your flat edge goes here, like this. There we go. Very quick and easy. Just like that. Okay, now remember the other things that we did? We put the little squares on there, here and here, right, for where our ties are attaching. This one, however, I'm going to put the squares here, but I am going to put a piece of interfacing along the top of this because this top band on the apron has the interfacing, and I want the interfacing on the lining as well so that the two are very similar when they go together, right? They've got a little bit of body to them. All right, so let me grab that. All right, so let's get that on here. Just like this. Yeah, I just had a strip cut. I didn't cut that down. You can cut that down if you like, or just use a strip and a rotary cutter and cut it to fit. All right, let's do our little interfacing on the other side. Oh, wrong way. I always want to put the little cuts to the curve, and it's like, you know, the cuts need to be on the outside so that they open when I go around the curve. That's why the cuts are there. It's like I always want to do that backwards. I don't know why. I think it's because I'm trying to put a straight edge on a curve, and my brain says, no, that's not going to work. But look, it does. It's the crazy things you do when you're making stuff, right? All right, I'm going to carry this one all the way up because I did the other one. Just like that. Let's give that a cut and trim that off and trim this one off. All right, so you can add as much stabilizer to this as you like. If you want your apron to keep the body more, you could stabilize this entire back of this lining if you so desired to do that, all right? Just because Joyce didn't do that, don't think that there's only one way to do this. You could easily put shape flex on this if you want a more stiffer apron, all right? I like them so that when I bend over to cook or I'm bending over to do something, I want that apron to definitely flex with me and stay with me, and that's probably a good thing. So I don't want any more stiffness on this apron, all right? Okay, so before I move on, I forgot to put my squares on. So I have located my squares, and I'm going to put these on like this. And again, I'm about 1/4 of an inch from this edge, 1/4 inch down, and I'm going to fuse that on all 4 points where our ties go, exactly like I did the apron front. All right, so we have our lining is complete now. All our interfacing is on. The front of our apron is complete as well. So now the last step, yep, now I get to put them right sides together. Turn this over. I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to make sure these little guys are tucked in their pockets so that they stay out of my way. Like this. Right sides together. Pin all the way around. Here we go. All right, I have all my pins are in. So I'm ready to go to the sewing machine. Let's go to the machine. Let's sew 1/4 inch all the way around. Now I want you to notice I left the bottom open. Did you see that? The bottom is completely open. That's how we're going to turn it. All right, so let's go sew that. All right, so we have this all the way sewn. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clip my corners, and then clip my curves. So I'm going to use these very sharp scissors because they have very sharp tips. And I'm going to clip just like this about every inch, 3/4 of an inch, somewhere in there. I just want this curve to lay flat when I turn it. I'm just going to give it a little snip. I'm being very careful right now not to cut my stitching. The last thing I want to do is have to go to the machine and put this back on the machine, right? I'm being very careful to just clip the fabric. And I'm not even going to the stitching. I'm a little bit away from that. I'm nervous about cutting my stitching, so I'd rather err on the side of caution right now. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do, instead of a rotary cutter, I am going to just use my scissors. I'm going to cut my corners. You can grade your seams if you need to. You can pull your lining back. You can grade this out of here. I think I'm going to leave it. I didn't have any problems with my last apron that I did. I didn't find it necessary to grade my seams. So I'm just going to clip my corners, and let's turn it right side out. Oh yay, my straps are still loose. You have no idea how happy that makes me whenever I see that. Whenever I have straps in a project. These, I did not tack these down. But my side ones, yep, look at that. They stayed safe and sound right in there, right in the pockets, right where I put them. Fantastic. All right. Let me grab my pressing mat. Go, and my iron, and my point turner. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up into this top, and I'm going to use a point turner to come in here and push this out a little bit here. I want that as sharp as I can get it. I think that looks good. Let's do the other side, and you can pull on that strap, and that's going to help you pull that out a little bit too. I kind of give those straps a little tug, and that'll help pull that out. All right, let's kind of wet my fingers a little bit here when I start rolling this. What I want to do is I want to roll this seam allowance just like that. I'm just kind of working this back and forth until I get the lining is completely to the back and the front is to the front. I like that. Let's go ahead and start pressing. This is a slow process to do this. I'm just going to press all the way around and get this apron pressed out. All right, so I've got it all pressed. It's all ready to go. Look how beautiful this is. I love the way the pockets all match. It's just so, so cute. So let's talk about finishing this project now. Very simple. You take this to the machine and top stitch it all the way around, side to side, okay? Then on the bottom, we're gonna take a hot ruler. We're going to put it on here. We're going to fold this up 1/2 inch and an iron, just like this. Press. Press all the way around. Fold it up one more time like this. Press again. Take it to the machine and top stitch it. Let me show you what that looks like. I have one completed right here. And here's the bottom hem. So I used a hot ruler, rolled it twice, and you can see how I top stitch the top. right here. I just top stitch this, and again, I just use navy blue thread. I was fine with that. There's a lot of navy blue in this. I think the navy looks beautiful with the yellow, so I did not worry about trying to change my thread out when I did my top stitching. I was okay with that showing. All right, so now the only thing left to do is to put the apron on. So let's do that. Let's see how this fits. My neck strap goes around. This goes into it like this and back out. My little rings, just like that. Pull it down. Oh, how cute is this? I absolutely love it. I know what I'm wearing tonight to make dinner. I'm wearing my apron. How much fun was that? Thank you so much for hanging in there with me. I hope you've enjoyed this video, picked up a few tips and techniques on how to do some very nice finishes. I love my welt pockets. They're so nice. I love this. I'm going to wear this every night. Thank you so very much for joining me, and I'll see you again on a Shabby Fabrics tutorial.